Good morning. Coming down to the home stretch. It is our pleasure and mine to introduce Agnes Gund, or as her friends like to call her, Aggie, to the grant makers in the arts. Aggie is a pathfinder and she is a path breaker. She has been in the vanguard of leading art institutions for more than 3 decades. And she is a tireless champion for civic engagement, laser-focused on women's issues, AIDS research, racial justice, and criminal justice reform. Aggie, as many of you know, is President Emerita of the New York Museum of Modern Art, and she chairs PS1 in Queens of MoMA. A philanthropist and collector of contemporary and modern art, Aggie also serves on the board of the Cleveland Museum of Arts, the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, the National Young Arts Foundation, and well, that's a partial listing. Of particular importance to those of us who are interested in funding at the intersection between art and social justice, we were buoyed in June 2017 when she launched the Art for Justice Fund. If you've not heard the story, Aggie sold a magnificent Lichtenstein from her private collection and then dedicated $100 million from the sale to launch this fund to end mass incarceration. Along with a dozen other funders and artists who propel the Art for Justice Fund, the fund has already distributed $43 million. And for anyone looking at the metrics associated with that expense, there is one that particularly pops out. The Art for Justice Fund helped drive the successful ballot initiative in Florida to restore voting rights to more than 1.5 million persons formerly incarcerated. As Picasso once said, art is a weapon to deploy, and that's art in action from one of our own. Aggie, we could not be prouder, more humbled, and more grateful for your tireless advocacy for the arts and the role that it plays in penetrating popular culture. Friends, we'll watch a short, rough cut from the forthcoming film, Aggie, produced by Agnes Gund, after which Aggie will join us.
This investment is so rare and critical. We're going to leverage it. We're going to bring in others at this very moment and share these resources because we know that by doing so, we're going to be able to go further together.
We can help so many small organizations now that are getting rid of some of these problems, the bail problem, the reentry problem, the youngsters going into solitary. I mean, all these things that shouldn't be happening.
We're not just fighting to end mass incarceration. We're fighting for health and safety and for the lives of our family, right? And for the lives of people in our community.
Finally letting go of that shame is activating folks to move on their collective power in ways I've never seen before.
There's like a stigma connected to like you coming from prison and you're like this monster, especially like when you're black. And like you have to do a lot like to try to change it. When I was locked up, I had to be in my own mind because it's like chaotic. And the art was like a focus, like a savior.
I was doing image transfers on prison bed sheets, using hair gel and a spoon, transferring them onto the sheets. There's so much fear and anxiety in prison, but to be able to create, being in solitary, kind of cut through all of that, which really solidified for me the importance of just being an artist.
For so many years, I wasn't able to take my family to vote because I couldn't vote. I wasn't able to lead my family to a precinct. I can do that now. And I have a newfound appreciation for that right to vote, and I'm going to celebrate with other returning citizens.
The new Legacy Memorial and Museum
really demonstrates in powerful ways how art and storytelling by those that are most dehumanized and invisible helps us to reckon with a legacy of slavery that has been perpetuated throughout our modern-day criminal justice system.
We want to have some artists that do things that really provoke, art that really does say something about where we're at.
We cannot create justice without our artists becoming engaged with us in this collective struggle. That's why I'm so excited about the Art for Justice Fund. If we stand up when people say sit down, we can create a movement that truly allows real justice to prevail.
Somebody said to me, they don't think prison is an unjust system.
Right. The things you care about are contested. So you, like Brian Stevenson and me, feel that the residue of slavery remains with us as a country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are a lot of people who don't want to have that conversation.
Have you had any of that reaction? Have you had any negative reaction?
Well, of course. There are some people who think our criminal justice system is just fine, and that mass incarceration is simply a result of bad people doing bad things.
Have they ever been to one of the prisons? We went to San Quentin. There was this section that looked formidable that we didn't go in, which was the solitary confinement. And it looked absolutely frightening. I've had people come up to me that I know really well and say, "What in the world did you do that for?"
The reason you do that is because you actually do care about justice. And there is a difference between philanthropy that is inspired by generosity versus philanthropy that is inspired by justice.
I don't know anything about great art, really. I haven't seen that Liechtenstein, but tonight it becomes a medal of honor for those of us who are trying to change things, for trying to do justice. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, Ms. Gund, I'm glad you were willing to say, I'm here.
Thank you, Ken.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you, Ken. It's wonderful to join grant makers and funders who support the arts across our country. And it's incredible to see you all in this one great room. Your support and drive a critical right that we share as Americans, freedom of expression. Thank you for being the power behind our most precious right and for inviting me to join you here today. Ken share that I created the Art for Justice Fund to end mass incarceration. It's widely known that I sold my beloved masterpiece by my friend Roy Lichtenstein to do so. Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy, was one of the catalysts for my decision to create the Art for Justice Fund, and I continue to be inspired by Brian's work. The fund works to safely reduce mass incarceration. We partner with criminal justice reform organizations engaged in changing the laws and policies that over-criminalize and sentence people to state prison. What has been galvanizing for us is to be joined in this work by artists, writers, and arts programs that work in the system and to divert people at risk. Artists like Dwayne Betts, Titus Gaspar, Maria Gaspar, and Xavier Simmons, Jesse Grimes, Russell Craig, and others that, like Recess in the arts in New York City. Arts 180 in Richmond, Virginia, and writers Valeria Lucelli, Francisco Cantu, and Mahogany Brown. And we have partnered with Brian and the Legacy Museum and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which has wisely employed large-scale public art to tell the brutal story of slavery and lynching, alongside legal advocacy to address mass incarceration. Over 100,000 people, visited the memorial and museum in the first year alone. The Equal Justice Initiative is reaching wide audiences and achieving the kind of scale only recently unimaginable by using native creative sectors to communicate the need for change through film, through literature, and through sculpture, to change individuals. A few weeks ago, I had dinner with Brian and about 1,000 of his closest friends in New York to celebrate the Equal Justice Initiative's 30th anniversary. So much has changed for the better over the past 30 years. Brian shared with us how he drove an old car that was donated to them by a homeless shelter and slept on his friend's couch for a year and a half when EJI started. Brian put the work first and his comfort last. 30 years ago, EJI had one employee. Now it has a staff of 102 people fighting for justice. 30 years ago, prisoners who suffered from dementia had no protections. Now, thanks to EJI, they do. 30 years ago, children as young as 14 could receive mandatory life imprisonment without parole sentences. Thanks to EJI, this cruel practice has ended. Now, children who thought they would die in prison are coming home as adults, and many of them are joining the fight for social justice. 30 years ago, Brian had a mustache, which I did not care for. Now he does not. See, things have improved. We are in this room, we have the power, those of us in this room have the power to do what EJI has done, use art to address the nation's most challenging issues. We have the power to invest in artistic endeavors that drive equity and break down division and indifference. Step up and follow formerly incarcerated leaders. They know what needs to be done. We have the power to inspire a culture of beauty that richly benefits, challenges, and changes people and the nation. We have in the room have that power. I'm sure that our friend, our inspiration, Brian Stevenson, will challenge us to use it. Thank you.